Street Fighter II changed fighting games forever. So much so that for years when people thought of Street Fighter, they would automatically picture the second game. But what about the first one? Why is it so easily forgotten? Well, for starters, we didn't get a console port of the first game until 2006. I mean, there are ports on other consoles, but that's like saying Samurai Showdown got a Stadia version. It exists, and that's it. But this is my first real taste of the first Street Fighter. Well, gotta start somewhere. Okay, so you've seen the thumbnail, you read the title, where the fuck is Fatal Fury? What if I told you that Fatal Fury was created as a direct response to Street Fighter? Let me explain. Two of the main directors of the original Street Fighter left Capcom to work for SNK. Whether or not they went of their own accord or got poached by SNK headhunters is a mystery. It's not out of the realm of possibility, as skilled game designers were in high demand during this era of the Japanese gaming industry. It became so much of a problem that people used code names in the credits of their games to make it harder for the competition to snatch you up. Regardless, they took everything that they learned from the original Street Fighter and used it as a foundation for SNK's spin on the idea. A little game called Garo Densetsu, or Legend of the Hungry Wolf. That title somehow got translated to Fatal Fury here in the US. The original title made more sense, but Fatal Fury sounds pretty cool and looks great on a hat, so fuck it. So unlike the first Street Fighter, Fatal Fury has a more fleshed out story. The majority of the action takes place in Southtown. In Southtown, there lives a martial arts teacher named Tung Fu Ryu, who teaches a style called Hakioku Seiken. Eventually, one of his top students, Jeff Bogard, gets chosen to be his successor. The other top student got jealous as fuck. This guy is Geese Howard. And he was so pissed that one day he killed Jeff in front of his two adopted sons, Terry and Andy. The two boys vowed revenge and began traveling the world to train in different martial arts styles until they returned to Southtown to enter Geese's tournament alongside their mutual friend Joe Higashi to get revenge on Southtown's #1 crime boss. It's got a lot more going on than Karate Man fights to be the best. It's got more flavor to it, that's for sure. That same flavor also applies to the cast as well. Terry Bogard, he's the main protag of the series and he's Andy's older brother. He mixes Hakioku Seiken with street fighting and brawling techniques to create his own unique style of fighting. He wants to get revenge on Geese for the death of his dad. Andy Bogard. He's Terry's younger brother who's also out to get revenge on Geese. He mixes Hakioku Seiken with Shiranui Ryu Ninjutsu for his own style. Joe Higashi. He's a Muay Thai champion who left Japan to come to Southtown to prove himself in Geese's tournament. He ends up making friends with the Bogard brothers and joins them in their battle against Geese. And we're done. That's all the playable characters in the game. SNK really wanted their own version of Street Fighter. Just like Capcom's Fighter, Fatal Fury does the same thing where you can only play as the main characters, and the rest are just there as opponents. At least Fatal Fury gives you 2 more characters to mess with as opposed to Street Fighter's 1. I guess we'll just cover everyone else next. Richard Meyer. He's a capoeira master from Brazil. He runs a nightclub called the Pow Pow Cafe. Michael Max, a former heavyweight boxing champion. Despite his status as a pro, he still does street fighting on the side. Tung Fu Ryu. We talked about him already, but he can use his chi to bulk himself up physically and spiritually. Duck King. A DJ and professional dancer. He's just out here vibing. I fucking love Duck King. Hua Jai. He's another Muay Thai fighter. He gets hired by Geese for the tournament. He's also an alcoholic. Raiden. This guy is a pro wrestler from Australia that also got hired by Geese. He's looking to get into some fights. Billy Khan. He's a Bojutsu expert from the UK. He is Geese's right-hand man. Geese Howard. He's the final boss and the CEO of the Howard Connection, a protection agency that's used as a front to run all the crime in Southtown. He's hosting the KOF tournament this year. Oh yeah, that. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Basically, Fatal Fury takes place in an alternate timeline from King of Fighters. And somehow Art of Fighting takes place before Fatal Fury. Just don't worry about it. In terms of gameplay, Fatal Fury has an interesting gimmick, the lane system. Each stage allows you to jump into the background to avoid attacks or to try to outmaneuver your opponent. There are even specific attacks that you can do while passing in between planes. This is also on top of SNK's 4-button layout, which ended up being present across all their fighting games going forward. Oddly enough, you only have 3 buttons being used here instead of the 4. Other than that, it's just one-on-one fights, best 2 of 3 with health meters and a timer. Basic fighting game shit.
Terry Bogard versus Tung Fu Roo.
Okay, Master Tongue, let's do this.
My pupil, Akioku Seiken, has many techniques that are unknown to you. For example,
whoa! Another thing bought over from Street Fighter are the bonus stages. Street Fighter had you breaking shit with your hands and feet. Fatal Fury has you playing an arm wrestling game against an arcade machine. All you gotta do is tap the punch button really fast until you win. If you win, it'll usually tell you how to do one of your character's special moves.
Joe Higashi versus Hua Jai.
Fuck you, Joe. Your Muay Thai is a joke.
Your gremlin-ass head is the only joke around here, boss man.
I'll show you.
this bitch done fell off the wagon.
That may seem like a pointless thing to do, but you gotta remember that these games were running on Neo Geo's MBS cabs. These were designed to house up the 4 different games that you could swap between, as opposed to everybody else's just having 1 game per cabinet. This meant that the fancy art, tutorials, and move lists that you would see on most cabs aren't present here. Those mini tutorials that are played at the start of every SNK game are there to make up for that fact.
Andy Bogard versus Raiden.
Hadouken! Alright, Raiden. Any last words before I beat you senseless?
I'm having a whinge.
Pardon?
I am Dark Dementus. No, I'm Red Dementus.
The fuck?
I need to get the Bendigo way to get me cube.
Where are you from?
Slinging with a slanger. This brings us to our next point. Fatal Fury's presentation. In a word, it rocks. The sprites are large and colorful. The backgrounds are very detailed and lively. Hell, the stages even change between rounds, going from one time of day to another. And then there's the music. I mean, just listen to this as opposed to this. One is music and the other is just a bunch of random ass noises Frankenstein together to make an attempt at music. Perhaps the most charming part of the presentation here is Geese himself. Well, as charming as a murderous crime lord can be anyway. This motherfucker pops up at the end of every fight to talk shit or get really salty. It is here that we get introduced to some of the most glorious English to ever grace gaming.
That guy seems to be in a good condition, but that'll change in the next match. Wow, who will fight against him next? Yeah, Raiden will. I will never lose!
Yes, sir.
I will never forgive you. You disrupt my plan of attack. I'll beat you like your father 10 years ago.
Trust me, we'll be getting more of this in the very near future.
Terry Bogard versus Billy Kahn.
Oi bruv, you know what Nemesis means. A righteous inflection of retribution manifested upon an appropriate agent, personified in this case by an awful cunt like me. Power Wave! Get serious! The only thing I understood was bruv.
Like most fighting game plots that revolve around a tournament, there is no hard bracket and no indication of who fought who except for the last fight where Terry fought Billy and won the tournament.
Yeah! I made it! I am the champion! The battle was so long! Dude, Geese is calling you! Come with us! What, Geese?
Holy cow, you disturbed my plan again.
Damn it! I've been looking for you. I'll now take revenge for my father's death.
Stupid boy. How about a man-to-man fight to the death? I cannot lose.
Well, this is it, folks. It all comes down to this, a final showdown with Geese. And it's here that we get our first taste of SNK boss syndrome. Throughout SNK's fighting game history, they've built up a reputation for having hard-ass final bosses in their fighting games. Input reading, high damaging moves, and pulling off shit that shouldn't be possible within the game's mechanics. All that shit starts with this guy right here. Honestly, he's nowhere near as bad as Rugal or Ignis, but he's still a pain in the ass. And he has the potential to be much worse. And Geese is dead. I know SNK retcons this shit later, but I admire them for having the balls to kill off their main antagonist in this first appearance, even if they got the date comically wrong. Now let's take a quick look at these ports. We're mostly going to cover the SNES and Genesis ports of Fatal Fury, as the Neo Geo AES and CD ports of Fatal Fury are arcade perfect. The Neo Geo CD version has horrible load times because it's the Neo Geo CD. Obviously, with both ports, you're getting a downgrade in the audio and visuals, as 16-bit consoles were incapable of competing with arcade hardware. Both versions allow you to play as the other fighters, with the Genesis version having Geese locked behind a cheat code. Strangely, the SNES version only lets the second player have the option to choose the other fighters. While that is a drawback for the SNES, the Genesis removes Hua-Jai and Billy from the game. The SNES version also removes the lane system too, so it plays like a traditional fighter. There's no point in either nowadays, as you can get the arcade version on all platforms for a few bucks. And that was Fatal Fury. It was pretty much an improvement over Street Fighter in every single way. Unfortunately, while SNK was trying to one-up Street Fighter, Capcom one-upped themselves by making Street Fighter 2 and changing fighting games forever. How will SNK respond? Find out in the next installment of Fatal Fury Anthology.